How much are we, the general public, unaware of the pain animals endure, and specifically animals like horses used for work or sports?
The percentage is pretty high that people are unaware of what's going on with our animals. Unfortunately, just because when people communicate, we use a lot of words. Even though they've seen that over 70% of language is actually communicated non-verbally, which, with most animals, dogs are an exception. When they bark or whine or something like that, they'll give us a better indication of what their emotions are feeling. Horses are far more stoic, so they don't necessarily engage all that much. And in all honesty, some of the training practices are, they want horses to just stand there and be quiet. So we almost kind of train the horses to not communicate with us, which is unfortunate because the horses, when they're it's important. It's like any other relationship. It's important to get a response. When we're having an engagement with the horses, we need to be able to see and check in with them as far as how this is working for them. Because just like people, horses learn at different rates. They have different levels of emotional and mental maturity. And sometimes, and of course with physical maturity as well. So all of these play into the level of comfort that horses have or discomfort. And being able to communicate that is not necessarily very easy for them.
Mm-hmm. You said horses are stoic.
Yes.
And we almost, not to paraphrase you completely here, but we almost tend to neglect them. And we tend to think that they're going to be fine. Where do you think this comes from? Is it because they are large animals? A dog is smaller, something like that?
I think it's the job that we see horses having, as far as dogs are more companion animals, and most people see horses as still more of a work animal. Even though we don't use them to get from point A to point B any longer, they still wind up having a job as far as, performing a certain set of, in a sport, such like, and that becomes their job. So, and when humans are asking and training horses to do these specific jobs, we expect some resistance or, misunderstandings and things like that. And sometimes people will just assume that a horse is responding in a way that is because they're just being unwilling, but not necessarily because they are confused or don't understand something. So when it comes to making sure that we are clear in our communication, we also have to make sure that we have a higher level of awareness of how that lands with the horse too.
Mm-hmm. So because they work, they're used for work quite frequently, we just assume that any resistance to doing what they're supposed to do is just born out of stubbornness or something.
Right.
Oh, wow. It's a huge misconception, I guess. I see. Okay. It seems that the work you do right now for horses was inspired by what happened to a rescue horse you had a while back called Beauty. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. At the time, I was working with a significant other, and we were trimming horses. And I was just driving along the road and looked over and saw this horse running with a really big head bob. So, in the world of horses, we recognize a big head bob as far as that being an indication of the limping. And so we left a card for the for the owner, and he wound up calling us, and we came across what the underlying problem of the horse's soreness was. And it was that she had gotten kicked in the shoulder as a young horse by another really large horse. And it wound up dislocating her shoulder, actually, to where she didn't have full range of motion with that leg, to the point where when she went to go land on her foot, it would actually roll back and she'd roll forward and land on the bottom of her leg, like the cannon bone. And it was utterly heartbreaking seeing her in that condition. And the person who owned her didn't have a vet look at her when the injury happened initially, and he was just going to kind of leave her like that. So we basically wound up buying her and doing an experiment to see if we could make an improvement on her leg. And we used a shoe, welded a bar to the front of it, and then wrapped her leg in padding in order to protect it and offer a bracing, and so we could get the ligaments to strengthen back up. And after about 6 weeks of that, she was actually able to start standing on that leg and locking it out and letting the other leg that had been supporting her since that injury have some relief, and she just kind of let it swing and just get some relief from that. And then from there, she just kept improving to the point where she didn't need the brace any longer. And she was able to run and play and buck in the pasture and play with the other horses. And so she had a good quality of life, but she would never be 100% sound just because there was damage to her structurally. And then at that point, I really realized how important the saying "no hoof, no horse" really is because, the horse's comfort really does, like humans to a degree, starts with the comfort of their feet, and it affects everything.
Mm.
So,
Well, you said you were working with a partner. Then were you? What were you guys doing?
So basically, what we were doing is we were professional trimmers, hoof trimmers, so farriers, and
okay.
Yep. And so we were just going out there and working and treating horses that were just strictly barefoot horses.
I see. And I mean, so even though you were just trimming the hoofs of horses, you were able to buy this horse and then, well, nurse the horse back to some type of, I don't know, functionality in some sense. So
quality of life.
Yeah. Do farriers do beyond just trimming hoofs, or did they do much more than that?
So there's a part where there's a corrective trimming part of working with horses' feet. Because horses will suffer from things like contracted heels and laminitis, and these are diseases that affect the horse's ability to be comfortable and have full range of motion. Okay. And so by being a farrier, we actually did a lot of corrective trimming. We worked on horses that had everything from clubbed feet to extreme overgrowth, where you see the horses or donkeys have long toes and it looks like their feet are slippers and not feet any longer. Mm-hmm. We worked with a wide variety of animals like that.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So you do corrective trimming, not just maintenance-based trimming. Correct. That you would see. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, wow. I see. How long have you been a farrier, would you say?
I started back in my 20s, so I'm 48 now, so about almost 30 years. That's
experience you can buy right there.
For sure, yeah.
So I would say you definitely know this more than anyone else.